so I had to switch on to my other phone. Hopefully this Galaxy works okay. But what we're doing is reading from this Working Conjure book by Hoodoo Semwe. We already read the introduction on the other video, so I'm just going to skip that. Well, I didn't read the whole thing, so hold on. Let me see how long it is. Decide to skip it. Okay, I don't want to skip the introduction. I'm just going to start over. But in the meantime, let's just have this first page go. In the introduction, right after the introduction, we're going to go into chapter 1, which is what is hoodoo / conjure, okay? So on a cool autumn day in Georgia, the leaves of the trees were turning from green to orange and gold, while some were transitioning to brown. Both the trees in the surrounding area were truly beautiful to behold. A nice breeze shuffled in the leaves that had already fallen. As evening approached, the sun began to work its way down to allow for the night to begin. The potent transformation of light to dark was starting. The time when the spirits are awakening. The day is for the living and the night is for the dead, you see? After the sun was gone, a man dressed in dark-colored pants and a red shirt approached the graveyard next to one of the local churches. This man had a cigar in his left hand, a bottle of whiskey in his right hand, and his head was covered with a navy blue cloth. This was a conjure man or hoodoo man. Conjure and hoodoo are terms that have become synonyms with one another and can be used interchangeably. He walked up to the entrance of the graveyard and acknowledged the gates. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a few coins. Holding the coins in his hand, he displayed them to the directions east, west, north, and south, made a small prayer, and then dropped them at the graveyard's gates. Holding his lit cigar and a bottle of whiskey, he entered and made his way to the crossroads within the graveyard. Once there, he began his work. Give me a second, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and share again. Oops. I can't be live on both pages, can I? In the world? How's that? Let me get out of here. Okay, yes. I'm trying to switch to the right Facebook page so I can share on the Oddity Shop. Hold on a second. The Oracle is live on YouTube. Tune in, beloved gang. I said love again. I said beloved gang. Tune in. Hashtag beloved gang. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. My 2 people tuned in. Shout out to DJ. I don't know how to say that. DJ NDDIA Scene 9184. Thank you so much for tuning in. Whoever else wants to get a shout out, just say something in the chat so I can see your name. Because when you're tuned in, I can't see your name until you come into the chat. All right, so we're still reading the introduction of this book here. Okay. The man pulled a throw out of his back pocket and dug a small hole in the crossroads. The ground was a little firm, so the digging process was labored. The hole was about 10 inches deep and about 8 inches around. After 10 minutes of digging, the hole was complete. The man gave thanks to the ancestors and to the earth for taking on the work that he was beginning to perform. He took a few more coins, a quarter, a dime, a nickel, and a penny, once again oriented them in the 4 directions and tossed them into the hole. He then poured whiskey on top of the coins at the bottom of the opened earth, making offerings to the spirits in the graveyard, as well as the earth for work. Once the offerings were placed into the ground, the man pulled a brown paper bag out of his back pocket. Several items were in that bag. A photograph of a young man was wrapped in a twine that had been soaked in a special oil known as separation oil. The man had also put hot foot powder, you'll find the formula on page 171, in the bag, as well as a few other roots and charms. The bag was everything in it. The bag with everything in it was placed into the hole. He called out to some of the spirits of the graveyard with whom he had established a relationship with, asking them to bring separation to the young man in the photo. The conjure man asked that he, the man in the photo, be separated from the relationship he was in and that he be moved away. Once his prayer and declarations were complete, the conjure man covered the hole and once again poured whiskey over the top. The man got up and put the throw back in his pocket. He then gave thanks to the spirits in the graveyard who had come to assist him and heard his declarations. He walked back to the gates of the graveyard, thanked the spirits of the gates, and made his way back home. Earlier that day, this man had received a visit from a young woman, someone who had been coming to him for quite some time. She had expressed her fears and overwhelming sadness regarding her relationship with her boyfriend. She described her boyfriend as abusive, controlling, and raging alcoholic. She said how she fears. Oh, wait, okay. She said how fearful she was of him, and as he would say things she wasn't going anywhere, or that he would make sure she was unable to leave. The woman was crying and confused. The conjure man offered his counsel, and the two spoke for a good while. The young woman knew that he was a root worker, someone who could work the elements of magic to create a change in her present situation, and so she asked for his help in removing the abusive boyfriend from her life. The condition of conjure. In the realm of spiritual or magic work, hoodoo or conjure has a tremendous influence in creating change that may not be so likely to occur otherwise. This is due in part to the nature of conjure. Conjure was birthed out of a need to stop oppressing and as a way to gain a leg up on the slave masters so that the folks could be free from the constant and disgusting treatment they received at the hand of those who took them away from everything they knew and loved. The power of the roots, coupled with the spirits and the ancestors, form a bond that facilitates magical change. When I say roots, I am referring to every part of the plant. That includes the root, the leaf, the stem, the flowers, and even the seeds. The term root is used as an umbrella term for all these things in the parlance of conjure. The work just described shown a day in the life of a conjure man. The story is filled with actions that folks may or may not be familiar with. Now, I would like to explain the steps in the story to help you understand how this powerful practice and work can be achieved. We begin with the conjure man coming to the graveyard at the point of dusk. Why dusk? There is an old saying that the day is for the living and the night is for the dead. The reason for this is because there are points of transition that are inclusive of both seen and unseen, the spirits themselves. It is like a veil worn by a bride. Her face is at least somewhat masked until it is time for her to be revealed. Spirits are not that far removed from this principle. As living beings, our bodies have internal clocks. The majority of the time, the clock is in sync with the day and the night. During the day, we are awake, alert, and doing whatever tasks need to be done. When the night comes, we get tired and our physical bodies begin to call for rest. We have transitioned from the work time to the time of being in a cocoon. The cocoon is sleep, rest, and recharging for the next day. For most of the living folks, okay, who else is in here? Shout out to Binge Neck, Cotton Bin Picked Yet Cold. I don't know what you mean by that, but okay. The cocoon is sleep, rest, and recharging for the next day. For most living folks, our proverbial veils are put on night and taken off during the day. Of course, we know that there are some individuals who are nocturnal and functional better at night, and they do do better at night than they do in the day. As humans, we are incredibly diverse. However, this is how the general principle of the living and the dead works, as I was given it. Spirit, the dead, on the other hand, have the opposite process of the veil. They, for the most part, are veiled in the day and unveiled at night. A significant reason for this is because they are not housed within a body, and their time of awakening is the opposite of our own. It is important to note that the physical and spirit worlds are two reflective mirrors that parallel one another, but in an opposite manner. As we sleep, they tend to rise. As we work, they tend to rest. Once the conjure man arrived at the gates of the graveyard, he gave his offerings at the entrance. It is like knocking on the door of someone's house. Offerings are quite important because they are conduits of balance. Why hasn't the cotton been picked yet? Cole. Oh, okay. So you're being racist, sir. I'm gonna get you out of here really quick, because what the hell are you talking about? Put user in timeout. 24 hours. There we go. He's out. Okay. Anyway, next. That was weird. Like, who gets on somebody's live to talk shit? You still giving me a view, weirdo. Anyway, where was I at? Okay. Once the conjure man arrived at the gates of the graveyard, he gave offering to the entrance. It is like knocking on the door of someone's house. Offerings are quite important because they are conduits of balance. If something is given, then something is taken. If something is taken, then something is given. You see? He was going into the graveyard to do spiritual work with the dead, and you have to pay for the work you do, the work you are doing. The offerings given have a couple of purposes. The first is to pay for work that is being done, and the second is to elevate as well as motivate the spirits you are working with. By elevate, I mean to lift up, to speak prayers, give words of thanksgiving and offerings, and the like. Upon entering the graveyard, the conjure man began to give his thanks to those that came before him. He acknowledged that the sacrifices that were made so that he could be standing exactly where he was at the time he was. He gave thanks to the earth, which possesses an astronomical amount of magical power to transform and create changes that reflects into both the world of the spirit and the world of the physical. Giving thanks is a form of elevation and of calling out to the spirits so that they can gain their attention and receive their help. That so that you can gain their attention and receive their help. Once he began to dig the hole, he was creating a womb, so to speak, in which the work could be rebirthed. In which the work could be birthed. Soil or dirt possesses power, energies, and spirit that are both creative and destructive. Where the soil comes from indicates what it will do. We will discuss this in further detail in chapter 5. But just know that the dirt themselves are a potent magical ingredient that birth work from a spiritual into the physical. I can't believe he got in there saying that. Like, who tunes into a live to talk about somebody's race and skin complexion? Like, if you don't like me, why are you watching? Go make a live about your hate and see how you do. Like, I don't understand that. Anyway, when the conjure man finished digging the hole, he had with him a bag with several items in it, items that were very personal to a particular individual. You see, one of the foundations of conjure is that linking of the work to an individual or individuals and linking the individual to the work. This is accomplished by way of items that hold a piece of that individual, a photograph, hair, fingernails, and so forth, all carrying a link, an essence of a person, and are used to attach the work to them. Whatever work that may be. The terms personal concerns, links, or sometimes token are used to describe such items depending on where you come from. In his work, the man was executing in physical what he wanted to manifest into the spiritual. As I was explaining earlier about the two mirrors, when something is done in the physical, it will reflect into the spiritual as vice versa. The work is about getting the two to match and reflect, which is a major part of what we do in conjure. The conjure man tied up the individual in a photo so that he would be bound from doing anything against the conjure man's client. Separation oil was put on the string using to bind the photograph to keep him away from her. Hot foot powder was added to the work to make him physically move out of the picture. The conjure man then buried the bag containing the work at the crossroads of a graveyard so that every road or opportunity would be shut down with the assistance of all the spirits that reside there. Once the work was completed, the conjure man gave thanks, again elevating the spirits of the graveyard, and left the work in the womb of the earth to be birthed so that the change and the desired goal could and would be achieved. In this book, we will discuss principles of conjure magic today. You will learn the fundamentals of conjure practice that will set the stage for building relationships with spirits of the roots and the magic they hold. Conjure has very strong roots in the earth and the spirits of the earth, which is important in balancing the physical and the spiritual. And because of you have no fundamental, there is nothing to set one's magical work upon the manifest between the two realms. The book contains recipes and workings that allow you to begin this journey, experience the culture, and see the latent power that is embodied in the potent magical practice. The knowledge of how to work a root is one that every conjure man or woman must possess. It comes from understanding the spirit of roots, the ancestors, and the foundation of two worlds that reflect into one another. In today's world, we come across all sorts of folks who practice all sorts of things and have many different perspectives. The book reflects my own perspective as a conjure man. For the past 35 years, my life has been dedicated to the spirits, to the roots, and to the work. It is the work that sustains us. It is the work that opens doors and closes them. It is the work that provokes growth. That's what conjure is about, after all. I will show you the balance of working with both hands, metaphors for positive and negative magical working, why it is necessary, and how the less spoken about facets of the work are just as important as those that are talked about more openly. The ways that you can work to create change are vital in this very magical practice. We will go over ways to work with both hands and give you tools to use in your own daily life. Nature itself is the shining example of both sides of the coin. A rainstorm can give needed water to the plants as well as create a destructive flood. Just as life has all sorts of ups and downs, our work can be used to take on those challenges effectively. Add a question sticker. Okay, that's fine. Oh, I gotta leave it up there. It's just right in the middle of the thing. Get out of here. Okay. Thanks for the thumbs up, DJ. Since there's no one, it appears like no one's here right now. So, okay, sorry about that. I'm back. Okay, we're at the end of the introduction. Nature is a shining example of both sides of the coin. A rainstorm can give needed water to plants as well as create a destructive flood. Just as life has all sorts of ups and downs, our work can be used to take on those challenges effectively. Balance has always been a cornerstone of the practice of conjure, whether it be to bless or to heal, to trick or to damn. The balance of both hands are represented in order to have an approach that keeps the scales in line. Change can be good, bad, or neutral. That change, whichever facet of it, should always bring about the opportunity for growth as well as a sharpening of your work. So let's grow, let's learn, and let's see about that conjure life. Okay, so that was the whole introduction. I'm going to go into chapter 1 after I share a little bit more. Give me a second. Let me see, a little minute here. Let's see if I can share on Instagram or Snapchat, one of the two. I don't even know how it looks this year on Snapchat. Okay, it's not letting me share on Snapchat. Let me see if I can share it on Instagram easily before I move on. Ooh, my leg fell asleep that quick. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten breakfast yet.
The most dangerous person is somebody who knows that they have to suffer.
I haven't eaten breakfast yet today. I just worked out this morning. So after I finish doing this, I'm probably going to go cook some breakfast, okay?
Sometimes God doesn't calm the storm because the storm was never the problem. Sometimes he lets it rage. Now hit that like button.
We're going into chapter 1. What is hoodoo/conjure? Give me a second. Let me just share it on my regular page. I'm getting old. Tune in for a live hoodoo and conjure book reading with Daja Beloved Oracle 444. Okay. Let me share this. I'll get back to reading. Okay. All right. I'll share it again. Hopefully, some people will pop in and hang out with us for a while. This is chapter 1. What is conjure slash hoodoo? In many places in America, particularly, sorry, let me get a little closer. In many places in America, particularly in the South, you will hear terms such as hoodoo, conjure, root work, or work used to describe a magical practice that is intended to bring about change in one way or another. These terms have become synonyms with one another and are used to describe the same thing. From here on out, we will use the word conjure to refer to the magical practice. So then, what is conjure? The short answer would be that conjure is an African American based magical practice that contains influences and African spiritual practices, Christianity, Jewish mysticism, and Native American practices, as well as European folk magic. However, the primary influence derives from the spiritual beliefs of Central and West Africa. During the transatlantic slave trades, many Africans were forced from their homes, their families, and spirituality, and all they had known, and taken to the Caribbean and then to the Americas. These slaves hailed primarily from West Africa and central regions, places such as the Congo, Palomayombe, the Benin, and Nigeria, where that's the motherland of Ifa. That's where Ifa comes from. And most voodoo comes from all of those places. But Africa has a lot of different types of voodoo. I'm just adding this. But let me go back to where I ended off. These slaves hailed primarily from the western and central regions, places such as Congo, Benin, and Nigeria. Their varying religions and spiritual beliefs become a great influence in the Caribbean and in the Americas. The United States, the atrocity of the slave trade officially continued until 1808, when inspirations of slaves from Africa were outlawed. Of course, this is not to say the smuggling of slaves did not occur afterward. The church, both the Catholic and Protestant denominations, saw African religions, spiritualities, and belief systems as evil, immoral, and even murderous. It was assumed that things like devil worship, human sacrifice, and a variety of other unethical acts were a part of their practices, and so these magnificent people, the enslaved Africans, were prevented from honoring their spirits and worshiping in the ways of their culture. Instead, Christianity was forced upon them in order to encourage or increase the slave master's control. You see, if they were worshipped the gods of the slave master, then slave masters would, wait, let me make sure I'm reading this right. You see, if they worshipped the god of the slave master, then the slave master would have tighter reins, and thus there would be fewer attempts at flight or revolt. Under these circumstances, you might see how this sad state of affairs would create feelings of despair and hopelessness. However, some of the enslaved did find ways to overcome. Some continued their practices in secret, which was dangerous, as if caught, repercussions including beatings, whippings, murder, rape, physical harm to loved ones who were also slaves, as well as taking away the little foods they were given. It was primarily the fear of those repercussions that kept them from rebelling against the horrible circumstances. Otherwise, however, were more innovative. They were encouraged slaves masters to believe that they were worshiping the Christian way, when in reality they were just using it as a mask to continue as best they could the practices of their own people. They would hold fast to spiritual beliefs of their culture and overcome oppression that continually dealt an almost unbearable burden. It is from this that we find Christianity making its way into the practice we know today as conjure. Conjure was born in the United States. I'm going to say that again. Conjure was born in the United States because that's important, okay? Out of the absolute need to overcome oppression, to create opportunity, and to provide the ability to magically stick up the middle finger to those oppressors. It was a way to counter the deeds of the slave masters and execute works of rebellion against those who will enslave and commit atrocities against them. This work was desperately needed, and it was the spirit of these slaves and their ancestors that evolved into conjure, one of the most potent spiritual and magical practices. The working side of conjure was greatly influenced by the religious beliefs of the Congo region. They were one of its primary roots, also where Palomayombe comes in. I'm just adding that. The idea that spirits reside in trees, leaves, roots, and the earth, and that they hold power to facilitate change become an important staple in the fabric of what we know as conjure today. The meaning of change, as used here, is an appearance of one realm or world into the other. We do work to create a new reality. The reality that you need a job or healing, for example, is an apparent in the physical, but perhaps not yet seen in the spirit. The spirit of the root work between both worlds, so the reflection is seen on both sides. In this case, the healing you are looking for, the job you need, is not only open to you, but also the fruit of the work you have done to acquire these things is made known in this world by the physical evidence. When the spiritual, physical worlds are mirroring one another, you get the job and the sickness you had is no longer plaguing you. Simply put, it simply put, it is the outward manifestation of the inner work as well as the inner manifestation of the outer work, the balance of both sides, both worlds, and both realities. The altering of reality is affected by means of doing work with these spirits or essences that assist you in reaching the desired goal. It is using these natural or primal powers of the root that were given to us by God that allow us our own edification, forward movement, and evolution to make our daily lives better. The power of the root is one of the primal beginnings. The spirits of the roots provide a touch of the divine, and these spirits work in conjunction with us to make things happen that will ultimately create change in one way or another. For example, let's say that everything you turn the roads seem blocked. Everywhere you turn the road seems blocked. Like nothing is, in the language of conjure, opened up for you. It could be that the crossroads, the place of opportunity and open door, is closed to you. Why the crossroads? Well, the crossroads is a place of power where the realm of physical meets the realm of spirit. It is the place where our paths are led before us. If it has been closed to us, we will be absolutely seeing blockages all around. So you would want to take some offering to the crossroads and do a work to open it up. You might take a coconut, place some of your hair, fingernail, toenail clippings together with a photo, some red palm oil, and some sugar inside, and take it to the crossroads. There you might give the crossroads offering of whiskey or rum as well as a smoke while you ask the spirits who reside there, and there are many, to open up the way. All the while you are digging a hole in which you bury your work. Once that has been done, the crossroads, your path, will open up for you again. This is just one of the many ways that can be done for a circumstance such as this. But the point I'm making here is that these roots, dirts, leaves, and such hold power to create manifestations in both the spirit and the physical realms. Excuse me. Fundamental tenet. This fundamental tenet is one of the root workers hold to in order effectively work conjure. Let me read this again because I'm not reading it right. The fundamental tenet is one we root workers hold to in order to effectively work conjure. Okay. This language in this book is a little country. All right, I think was that the first one? Yeah, that was the first chapter. So we're going into chapter 2 now. Let me see. I think I'm gonna keep going until chapter 4. It's been 30 minutes, so by the time I get to an hour. Oh no, that's still chapter 1. I thought that was chapter 2. Okay, we're gonna read till chapter 2 and then see how much time we've been on here, okay? Make it a little more fun. Okay, that's cool. I'm gonna go underwater for a minute. All right. Again, this is the book we're reading, guys. Influences in conjure. Conjure varies from region to region as well as from family to family. Why is that? Well, to put it simply, some regions had more of one influence than another. Other regions had certain roots that were more easily accessible. You also have to influence you also had the influence of the families that lived in those regions whose own folk practices became incorporated into conjure. In the South, you will find folks who swept their houses from back to front, not only to clean the floor, but also to begin a cleansing on the home. You will find others will put a railroad spike in the corner of their property to protect it. The reason for the spike is because it nails down or fortifies your home, preventing negativity or evil from being able to enter the property. When I was a kid, we used to keep our glass of water with evil eye beads inside by the door. Once a week, a candle would be lit and set next to the glass, and it was believed that the evil eye could not survive under the water. If someone was trying to give you the evil eye, the glass by the door would take the hit. You see, these magical practices are very much intertwined in the stories that have been passed down by families and have become a big part of the conjure works you see today. Conjure is not a religion or a spiritual path per se, but rather magic/spiritual work that is done to bring about change in a situation. Whether that situation is a relationship, money, a job, revenge, healing, or cleansing, the fundamental tenet of conjure is to do work that changes the circumstances. Now that the work of conjure can be and is in some areas largely used in conjunction with regional spiritual practices. Now, New Orleans, for example, the population of the city is largely Roman Catholic. The Catholic Church makes up a large part of the city's spiritual beliefs. Many root workers are in attendance at the weekly masses. Likewise, you will find that the working of conjure or conjunction with the Catholic saints is very common in New Orleans. Take Saint Expedite, also known as Saint Expeditus, for example. In life, Expedite was a Roman soldier who, it is said, converted to Christianity and was beheaded in 303 CE. He had a reputation for getting things accomplished with haste. Because of this, he is typically a saint that folks go to when they need fast results due to time constraints or other urgencies. He is greatly loved and worked with both inside and outside of the Catholic faith. Catholic root workers will go to him, give offerings, and leave work so that things happen swiftly. The favors are answered quickly. Usually with Saint Expedite, you make a deal with him. The deal is that you will give him offerings once he grants the petition you make. So, for example, if you are looking to get some money in a hurry to pay bills, you will make your prayers to him and tell him that if he grants the petition in a hurry, you will give him offering, such as pound cake, water, candles, red or white or yellow, and flowers. Now, it is very important that you honor that promise. It's very important that you give the offering if you talk to Saint Expedite. Pound cake, water, candles, red, white, or yellow candles, and flowers. When you tell a spirit slash saint or whomever that you are going to do something, you need to do it. Remember, if they grant something for you, they can easily take it away. And they would be completely justified, and that would be completely justified in doing so because you didn't hold up your end of the bargain. Always give your offerings, people. If you see this, whether you see it today, tomorrow, next week, 100 years in the future, remember this. I'm not the only one saying this, okay? Always give your offering. A few years ago, I was looking around in the Catholic Church in New Orleans. I saw the beautiful statues, stained glass, and altar pieces, and was in awe of how the place looked. It happened. I happened to be. I happened to come upon the area where prayer candles could be lit for people. It was a touching sight, for sure. There were all these candles lit for various prayers and petitions, all seated in the beautiful stand. Excuse me. While I was admiring the stand and the lights that had been set, I noticed something underneath the candle stand, behind one of the iron legs. It was a mojo hand, a little charm bag. And I want to show y'all what mojo looks like now that we're talking about that before I move on. Like just an example. Excuse me. Here's a mojo bag right here. Okay. There's a bunch of herbs in there, some personal items for the person that it was for. This in particular was for a court case last year that I worked on for someone really important to me. And it's still there. And speaking of it, I do need to feed it today. So I'll do that. Moving forward, where was that? I stopped at mojo. Remember. Somewhere around here. Did my page turn? Oh yeah, it did. Okay. Somewhere over here with the mojo. Okay, I don't know where I was at, so I'm going to start back right here. While I was admiring the stand, the lights that had been set, I noticed something underneath the candle stand behind one of the iron legs. It was a mojo hand, which looks something like this. Saint Expedite's prayer card wrapped in around it, and it had been placed under all of the lights that had been set in the church for whatever work the conjure person was doing. I did not, of course, touch the work being done. That would just be rude. I did, however, greatly respect the work that was being done with the two paths together. It was conjure and Catholicism working in conjunction with one another. Faith and work coming together to achieve the desired goal. The power of the roots working in tandem with the power of the saint. It was a beautiful example of how the inner work of faith moves with the outer work of conjure. In areas where Protestant Christianity is dominant, you will find its signature on the root worker's work as well. Remember, conjure in and of itself is a powerful relationship with root that is used in tandem with the face of spiritual paths that have influenced and expanded upon it by combining inner faith without a work. The Old Testament, for example, is very widely used in the working of conjure. Whether or not this pleases people, there is a profound Christian influence on conjure. Genesis, Psalms, Proverbs, and other books of the Bible, for example, hold keys of power in them. The keys of power in these books are made up of several things. There are spells or workings, spiritual principles of power to create magical change, and potent spiritual work that will manifest in a physical way, actually contained in the Bible, that we use quite frequently. I'm going to repeat those Bible verses again too. Genesis, Psalms, Proverbs are some of the main books in the Bible that have hoodoo and conjure spell in them, hidden right in plain sight. When I say books of the Bible, I'm referring to just that. For example, Genesis, Psalms, Proverbs, and Isaiah are all smaller books that make up the larger book. Now, it is only Christian influence that is in foundation of what we know as conjure today. Absolutely not. It isn't only Christian influence. I said it is. The African root of conjure is still the primary root. The influence of the Congo, Yoruba, and Nafan people dominate how work is done within the realm of the potent practice. The African spiritual practices that were and still are nature and ancestral based hold extreme significance in the power of the work. Give me a second. My mouth got so dry just now. Just want to put a little chapstick on. Let's take, for example, the doll baby, also known as the dolly or voodoo doll. The doll is made from items typically available in the root workers region. Dolls might be made of sticks and Spanish moss with the fabric wrapped around it. To form the body. They can also be made with twine and cotton. There are many ways to create a doll baby that have been and are still being used to this day. One of the purposes of the doll baby is to do work on an individual, whether positive or negative, by way of a link established through an individual's personal items, hair, blood, fingernails, clippings, and the like. A doll baby may also be used to house a spirit that work is done with, often on the contractual basis, as a way of having the spirit work through the vessel of the doll. In the Congo, there are large wooden statues called nkisi. These statues typically have a hollowed out area, usually in the stomach or behind the head, in which the special roots, bones, and powders are placed for working the spirit that will inhabit it. Nails are then driven into it to activate the statue, or large wooden doll, if you will. The purpose of driving the nails into the nkisi is to wake up the inhabiting spirit and give them an assignment to carry out. Here, we find a strong commonality with the American version of a voodoo doll. And we can also see parallels between the nails hammered into the nkisi and the pins stuck into the voodoo doll. When enslaved Congolese were transported to the Americas, they could not make nkisi statues for several reasons. First of all, they lacked the materials needed to carve them. Second, the appearance and massive size of the statue made them extremely visible, which would have brought about some of those horrible repercussions mentioned earlier. An alternative was needed. And also, here come, okay, I can't even talk. An alternative was needed. And so, here comes the voodoo dolls. That is a smaller, easier to hide, and yet still effective version of the nkisi. So, as you can see, the spiritual influences of several cultures have played a part in the evolution of conjure today. It is a practice that has its hands in many houses, so to speak. A root worker's explanation of conjure. When we think about conjure, the several things come to mind. Terms as such terms such as putting a root on someone or laying a trick often follow in those thoughts. These terms are fantastic to explain the very practical side of nature and conjure work. Conjure is a relationship established with roots through which work can be effectively accomplished. A, a relationship with the root. Yes, you see, the tenet of the root worker is that God has put every plant and animal on earth for the use and benefit of humanity, and not only for food purposes but also for magical work. Each root possesses a spirit that holds a connection to the earth and predispositioned has been predispositioned to do certain kinds of work. Here are two quotes from the Bible regarding the plants, animals. The first comes from Psalms 104. Psalm 104. Blessed the Lord, O my soul. O my Lord, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who coverest thyself with light as with a garment, who stretchest out the heavens like a curtain, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot, who walketh upon the wings of the wind, who maketh his angel spirits his ministers and flaming fire, who laid the foundations of the earth that it should not be removed forever. Thou coverest it with the deep as well as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. At thy rebuke they fled. At the voice of thy thunder they hasted away. They go up by the mountains, they go down by the valleys into the place which thou hast founded for them. Thou hast set a bound that they may not pass over, that they turn not again to cover the earth. He sendeth the springs into the valleys, which run among the hills. They give drink to every beast of the field. The wild asses quench their thirst. By them shall the fowls of the heaven have their habitation, which sing among the branches. He watereth the hills from the chambers. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of thy work. He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of men, that they may bring forth food out of earth, and wine that maketh the glad heart of men, and oil to make his face to shine, and bread which strengtheneth man's heart. The tree of the Lord are full of sap, the cedars of Lebanon, which he hath planted, where the birds make their nests. As for the stork, the fir trees are her house. The high hills are a refuge for the wild goats, and the rocks for their conies. He pointed to the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth his going down. Thou makest darkness, and it is night, wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep forth. The young lions roar after they prey and seek their meat from God. The sun ariseth. They gather themselves together, and they lay them down in their dens. Man goeth forth into his work and to his labor until the evening. O Lord, how manifold are thy works! In wisdom hast thou made them all. The earth is full of thy riches. So is things great and wide sea, wherein are things creeping, innumerable, both small and great beasts. There go the ships, there is that Leviathan, whom thou hast made to play therein. Excuse me. These wait all upon thee, that thou mayest give them their meat in due season. That thou givest them thy gather, thou openest thine hand, they are filled with good. Thou hidest thy face, they are troubled. Thou takest away their breath, they die, and return to their dust. Thou sendest forth thy spirit, thou art created, and thou renewest the face of the earth. The glory of the Lord shall endure forever. The Lord shall rejoice in his words. He looketh on the earth, and it trembleth. He toucheth the hills, and they smoke. I will sing unto the Lord as long as I live. I will sing praise to my God while I have my being. My meditation of him shall be sweet. I will be glad in the Lord. Let the sinners be consumed out of the earth, and let the wicked be no more. Bless thou the Lord, O my soul, praise ye the Lord. The second is from Genesis 1:29 through 31. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to every thing that creepeth upon the earth wherein there is life. I have given every green herb for meat, and it is so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. For example, let's consider angelica root. Angelica root is very strong root for shielding and protection. It is like the guardian that goes before you, and so it is used to it used in quite a bit of protection work as well as in cleansing work. The spirit of the angelica root is one whose inclination is to perform the duties of a protector or guardian angel. When we establish a relationship with these spirits of the roots, we are creating a bond that goes two ways. We serve the spirit of the root, that spirit does the work for us. Balance is crucial in root work. This balance of things translates into how and why work is done. When you use the root to do work, you need to pay for the root for the work. You need to pay the root for the work. Nothing in this life is free, including the working of a root. We give the root prayers, offerings such as rum, whiskey, smoke, songs, money, and light, a lit candle. These things are part of the give and take of the work. If I want to go to a doctor to make myself feel better because I have a stomach ache, I would have to pay him for the work of examining and diagnosing my illness. Chances are he isn't going to do it out of kindness of his heart. This same principle is very much applicable with working of roots. Those spirits must also be paid. Petitions and offerings must be given so the spirit of the root will do the work and do it well. The relationships established with the roots is one that opens the door for powerful work. Just as we have relationships with ancestors, guides, deities, and the like, the same equally applicable with roots. The bond is formed in the same or similar way. You speak to the spirit of the root, you honor the spirit of the root, and you offer the spirit of the root. As you do this, you will find the spirit of the root will offer back. The beginning of the working contract starts here. The culmination of this work is the understanding that cultural influences, slavery, rebellion against oppression, folk magic, and the stories we are told have a huge part to play in the tradition of conjure and its magical potency. Merging together the works that have been passed down by those who have come before us and the strong behind with the root will create a work who is unshakable in his magic, and unyielding in his spiritual labors. This is what conjure is all about. The power of those who came before you, the strength of your bond with the roots will give you the foundation to work in tremendous authority and strength. So that's the end of chapter 1, page 14. Let me see how long chapter 2 is, because we are at an hour now. So that's kind of short. I guess I could read chapter 2. It's not anybody really paying attention to complain, so hold on one second. I'm going to read chapter 2. Let me see with a big head. All right, this is chapter 2. Living life of conjure. There are many folks who have an idea that conjure is something you do only when you need or want to work magic. I disagree with this. The work of conjure is birthed out of a need to overcome the oppression of slavery. It was a way for slaves to turn the tide against the slave masters and take back, at least in some way, what had been taken from them. Conjure is much more than magic work that goes into it. It is culture of magic. It is a culture of magic, a culture of overcoming obstacles, and a culture of ongoing daily work that keeps the roads we walk on smoothed out. We do things without even thinking about them. If I were sweeping the floor, for example, I accidentally ran the broom across my feet, I would automatically lift the broom up off and spit on it. Why? Running the broom across the feet can take away luck and blessings, and in some ways can alter the day in a way that might prove to be challenging. Another example would be that every time I go to the graveyard, I always drop coins at the gate or entrance. It is not something I even have to think about, because I know that when I go to someone's house, I never go empty-handed. These are just some simple examples of how we live, and how we do is both in the spirit world and in the physical world. Okay. Conjure holds within it a powerful culture where simply allowing detrimental things to happen is not acceptable. It is through that part of the culture that we never allow ourselves to be defeated, nor do we let opportunity for defeat to even present itself. Making magical change. One of the most potent places in work of conjure is the crossroads. The crossroads is the intersection where the world of the spirit and the world of the physical come together. It is in the crossroads that you see into both worlds, and it is in the crossroads that powerful work is done. A foundational principle of conjure is that each merges into each other. It is like having two mirrors that reflect into one another. The work that is done in the spirit will reflect into the physical, and on the same note, that work done in the physical will reflect on the spirit. The manifestation of each has its own point of power, but understanding that what you do in the world will become manifest in the world of the spirit and vice versa. Using physical things such as roots to do spiritual work that affects magical change is just that. For example, in uncrossing can be done by making baths that you take for a specific amount of time. The physical act of taking these baths is sent or reflected to the spirit, which begins the process of manifesting the uncrossing. The two work together to achieve the change in the condition you were wanting to remove. I want to let y'all see some of the book. Okay? This is what it looks like in case you're interested in buying it. I don't I don't remember if I paid full price for it or not because I think I might have got it used on Amazon, but the full price for it is listed as $18.95. This big head is hilarious. Okay. And this is the book. Let me find out how that looks. I'll put it here. Okay. Okay, I don't know where I was at. I believe I was right here, so I'm just gonna read that again. The act of the physical act of taking baths is sent or reflected to the spirit, which begins the process of manifesting the uncrossing. The two work together to achieve the change in the condition that you are waiting to remove. It is all about balance. Conjure is not good or evil. It is necessary. We do not see things in such a way that something is one or the other. Circumstances, conditions, and situations are looked at and worked in such a way that the balance of the proverbial scale is maintained. If the work is justified, then it's justified. If not, then there can be a spiritual repercussions. You see, if those scales are unbalanced, then chaos will come in and take over. Therefore, we do what is necessary to keep things in order. This is also why we work with both the right hand and the left hand. The work of conjure is not and never has been about staying in the love and light. It is the responsibility of every worker to keep the scales where they need to be, and that is done by working with both hands. Sometimes we do things that are not pleasant and not described as good. That, however, does not negate the fact that it needs to be done. Again, think of how the ancestors had to overcome the conditions and circumstances they were forced to endure. If it were all pleasantries, then then they would not have to been able to do what they have done so that they could escape the very clutches of evil that they were subjected to. That is so weird. Am I reading it wrong or is it written weird? If it were all pleasantries, then they would not have been able to do what they had to do so that they could escape the very clutches of evil that they were subjected to. One of the cornerstones, okay, now this one is changing to spirits. It says spirit there. Can you see it? One of the cornerstones of conjure is the ancestors. It is the ancestors who blazed the trail for each of us to be where we are right now. It was their blood, sweat, and tears that laid the foundation that enabled us to do this work and create magical change to conditions and circumstances. The importance of establishing the relationship with those who come before you is something that opens doors to powerful spiritual work. Your ancestors carry with them a tremendous amount of wisdom and have the ability to give direction in your work. All of the sacrifices they made laid the way for you to be able to grow. And be protected, work effectively, and hold a spiritual foundation that is unshakable by any storm. Another foundation stone of conjure is the roots themselves. Every root by root, I am referring to roots, herbs, barks, and other parts of the plant, has within it a spirit. The spirit of the root gives it the power to do the certain kinds of work, depending on the root. Each has its own disposition of you, if you will. Some of, I'm really messing up. Okay. Have a each has its own disposition, if you will. Some are used in works of prosperity, protection, cleansing, and the like. Others are quite effective in works of crossing up, bad luck, damnation, and such. Knowing the roots is a key when it comes to doing this work. In conjure, we hold to the truth that God puts all of the roots here on earth for us and our use, both for food and for spiritual work. Working with spirits, both your ancestors and the spirits of the roots, is very important that you understand that having respect for them, honoring them, and establishing a relationship with them is what brings about potency in the things you do. We always give offerings to our ancestors and to the roots. If something is given, then something is taken. If something is taken, then something is given. This keeps things in balance and should be looked at as paying for the work for being done. For example, if you went to get a haircut, you would be expected to give the barber or hairstylist money for the work they did for you. It's only right. On that same note, our spirits and the spirits of the roots take offerings to do the work that is asked of them. We love them and they love us. We work for them and they work for us. We give them offerings and they give us things like protection, wisdom, insight, and knowledge we would not have otherwise. Making prayers and petitions is also something that is quite important. If you don't make prayers, how are they going to know what we are asking them to do? If you aren't lifting them up with words of edification, why would they want to work for you? Something as simple as thanking them for everything they have done, for everything they continue to do, has its own potencies and serve and increase your own power in the work of conjure as a whole. Staple ingredients in conjure work. In conjure, there are ingredients that you must always have around. They are staples in what we do and are used in nearly everything we do. The candle is always present for every very simple reason. The candle lights the way or illuminates the path to what is about to happen. Think of the candle like a lighthouse on a cliff. The lighthouse guides the ships to it. It draws them to itself. The same principle is what the candle does in work. It brings the spirit closer to that work. It brings the spirits closer so that the work can be done. Unless it has been fixed to do a different job. It is also an offering to the spirits. Water is an important part of work with the spirit. It is a means of travel, a conduit of the spirit, and it's present to facilitate just that. Water opens the door, so to speak, for spirits to come through so that the job can be done. It is for this reason that having a glass of water where the work is being done is significant. Another thing you will see in the selection of roots, you will find a lot of things growing around the house And you will also see jars or bags of dried roots. It is from the root that so much of this work comes, and it is by the root that we continue to do the job at hand. Roots are ingredients in powders, oils, and the like, which creates magical change to conditions that need to be removed, imposed, or amplified. The conjure work, as very important factor, is making sure a link is established with the individual or individuals that the work is being done for. The link that is established is done with personal items from the individual, such as hair, fingernails, blood, semen, unwashed clothing, and the like. Those things hold a piece of the essence of someone, and because of that, they can be used as if the person were present in front of you. Photographs and names on paper, pieces of paper with the person's name written on them, can also be used, but they may not be as strong as in comparison to actual items from the person. All in all, this work is very hands-on, very practical, and does not shy away from the needs to be accomplished so that the condition is changed. Conjure is about connecting these things together to create that change. The way it is done holds great power. It has the ability to facilitate strong spiritual work. If you are honorable in your work and your relationship with your spirits, then they will honor you back. When I speak of being honorable, I am referring to whatever you are doing. Do it with the integrity and balance. There must be balance in all things, and the only way to keep the balance is to know how to work with both hands. And that's the end of chapter 2. That's page 20. And I'm going to stop right there because I got something to do, some errands to run, and some free food to go eat. Okay? Thank you for whoever did tune in. I can't really see all of who tuned in, but I appreciate it if you did come and watch for a little bit. And I hope you tune in next time. Thank you so much. It's your girl Daja Beloved Oracle, and I'm signing out. So peace. Mwah, 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 mwah.